Hi, I'm Cindy, and I'm restarting my artist career in 2025 with the goal to start a small business. I've been putting a lot of time learning how to paint with gouache and only using supplies I've hoarded over my lifetime before buying new supplies. Recently, I've been on a search to find a sketchbook that can handle mixed mediums. This includes watercolor, gouache, color pencils, ink, soft pastels, alcohol markers, and acrylics. If you have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments below. So I got this Holbein sketchbook quite a few years ago, but always felt too precious about using it. What drew me to it was that it's a watercolor and multimedia paper, which means it can handle both wet and dry mediums. It's also 80-pound paperweight that is thinner than the Arches watercolor paper that I use, but it's about the same thickness as the B Paper Company mixed media paper. But unlike the B paper, which has very little texture, the Holbein has watercolor cold press paper texture finish. This sketchbook is quite expensive, and at the time, I bought it as a splurge to treat myself. Right now, it costs $19.75 on Blix. The funny thing is, I only bought one back then, but they had sent me a pack of 5. I was super confused and thought I'd mistakenly added, multiple of them to my cart, and this has totally happened before. But I think because the manufacturer packages them in 5s, whoever packaged my order must have thought it was one unit. So I got 5 for $20. I tend to unhaul my splurged art supplies that I don't end up using for many years to my other art friends quite often, and I did give one of these sketchbooks to a friend, but I kept the other 4. So I'm excited to try this out and see whether or not it's worth me getting again. For the first page, I had an idea of doing a shape study with foliage. It's like drawing a 3D sphere with specific lighting conditions. I'm referencing this book called Color and Light by James Gurney. There's a section where he goes over different lighting conditions. I've done this type of study before in art school. My pencil sketches here are just for reference. It's honestly not that super accurate, but it gives me enough of an idea so when I paint the sphere, I know where to put the lights versus the darks. This ended up being really hard. Part of it is that I'm still trying to figure out how to paint foliage and doing it in a 3D sphere shape instead of a flat plane with no reference of what that's really supposed to look like kind of relies on your imagination, which oftentimes just doesn't translate well. But you know what? It's just a study and practice. And yes, this is the first page of my sketchbook, and I know many people are very precious about it, but who cares? I've waited too many years just to feel confident in my painting skills to use this. If anything, the first page is a great way to test the paper and how it handles your preferred medium. For the next page, I decided to do a painting from imagination. I don't do this very often. I'm still at the level where I'm learning foundational skills through painting from real life, or in my case, photo references that I have taken. One of my latest sketchbook sessions was painting mini houses on a hill, also from imagination. So that's where the inspiration for this one came from. I started with a tiny sketch and basic color swatches. I didn't do more than one color swatch because I just didn't feel like it and I was pretty happy about this. What I really wanted to test was how the paper handles my usual way of painting with gouache. And that's with a lot of water initially, and then heavier layers of thicker paint later. I do use my gouache like watercolors initially because I was primarily a watercolor painter. It is hard not to fall back on it when gouache reacts so much like watercolors. While making this painting, I noticed this paper wrinkles a lot more when wet. Part of it is because of how much thinner it is compared to the Arches 100% cotton cold pressed watercolor paper. Another thing is the blendability of my gouache paints. I have a harder time blending the paint after it's applied and dried with this paper. With the Arches paper, I can easily reactivate and blend on the paper directly. And lastly, the tape peel was rough. And no, it's not the tape. Sometimes the paper simply does not work well with the tape. I'm using an artist tape that I've never had any issues with the Arches watercolor paper, so I was surprised how much is stuck to this paper and caused it to rip. I'll have to try another masking tape next time to see what it's compatible with. A friend recommended that I do thumbnail and color studies, something that I totally didn't do for the last painting. And then I saw this other artist reel doing mini thumbnail painting studies with gouache. It looked like such a fun process, so that's what I did for this third page. I started out with a wash of color in a squarish shape. I didn't draw a grid or anything, so it's very rough, kind of gives it a bit of character. And again, I didn't use references for this. I don't know why I'm not using any references for this entire video, but that's just what I felt like. I think my thought process was trying to challenge myself to come up with ideas based on what I've learned so far. It turned out to be a very interesting challenge and taught me what I'm most comfortable with thus far. Partway through this painting, I decided to swatch the paint colors I'm using on each thumbnail. It's actually really interesting to see how many colors I use consistently in different thumbnails. So, what did I think about this Holbein watercolor multimedia paper? Would I recommend it? Well, it held up to wet medium pretty well and didn't bleed through to the next page. However, I didn't really like how much this paper buckles when it's wet. With the price point of 1975 US dollars and containing only 28 pages, it's about 71 cents per page. Aesthetically, it's very pretty. I love the hardback cover with the thin spiral, allows the book to lay flat without annoyingly big binding rings. The ribbon closure is a nice touch, but I found it more annoying than useful. I can see someone who does very beautiful sketchbook drawings, paintings, doodles, and whatnot turn their sketchbook into something of a collector's item. But personally, I think the sketchbook is too expensive for me to get again, and it also doesn't meet what I'm looking for. However, it would make a great gift for artists, and I would happily accept it as a gift. I just wouldn't buy it with my own money. While I don't plan on buying any new sketchbooks until after I launch my shop and see how well it does, I would love to hear your recommendations on your favorite multimedia sketchbooks and why it works well for you. If you enjoyed watching this and would like to see more, please let me know in the comments below. The like and subscribe buttons are optional, but it would make me super happy too.